Hello and welcome to the Built on Air podcast. Built on Air is a regular podcast where we talk with everyday people and learn about the amazing things they are doing with Airtable. Today's podcast is sponsored by OpenSide, the leading solutions provider for Airtable customers. Check out openside.com to learn more about their products and services that can take your Airtable usage to the next level. Use promo code BuiltOnAir to receive $20 towards any product purchase.
Today on the Built on Air podcast, we travel to France to chat with Ambroise Dhenain, startup co-founder, CTO, developer, and more. Ambroise has always had a passion for technology and worked for years as a front-end and full-stack developer before co-founding his startup, Unly. Unly focuses on providing access to education for students, and among many of his roles with the company, Ambroise heads up the technology team as CTO. He says he was introduced to Airtable by another nonprofit organization and immediately saw the potential in its easy-to-understand and intuitive interface. They didn't dig in until a couple of months later, but soon they were using it regularly for everything from risk assessment to time tracking. One thing that Ambroise, and many Airtable users alike, grew frustrated with was the lack of capabilities with regards to backing up data. In an attempt to fill some of that gap, Ambroise and the team at Unly released an open-source software for managing Airtable backups. He demos his product for us today, showing us how a little technical knowledge can help you set up timed backups that will capture entire bases at whatever time increment you set. Check out the show notes to learn more about Ambroise, Unly, and their backup software.
All right, good afternoon. How are you today, Ambroise?
Well, I'm fine. What about you, Ali?
I am great. Thank you so much for joining us on Built on Air today. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, it's a pleasure shared. I didn't expect to be invited in the podcast that fast after releasing the Airtable backups software, open source.
Yes, that is super exciting. So I saw your post on the community forum, and that is posted under, is it Unly? The name
Yes.
of your... Awesome.
Of my company, yes.
Great.
I am one of the 3 co-founders, and Unly is basically an organization that helps students access higher education.
Okay.
And to do so, we have several kind of ways, and the most important aspect of it is like the financial aspect. When you are a student and when you want to follow higher education studies, the first issue is going to be money. Yeah. And it is true, very true in America, but it is true in France as well, and most countries nowadays. So that's why that's our mission, to help people access higher education.
Awesome. And so when did you co-found that?
Well, I joined the company 2 years ago.
Okay.
And we are 3 co-founders, and I'm managing all the IT-related stuff, let's say.
That's awesome. And so I read a little about your background. So you kind of left the comfort of your regular job to go and start this on your own. What was that like?
Well, first, I wasn't exactly on my own, because I'm working with 2 awesome people, right. And that changes everything. Yes. I'm not alone with my own issues. We are together with our own issues, but it helps. And I didn't plan on building this company, but it was, I don't know, luck or fate, or whatever you call it, that makes us meet together, like completely randomly, and we didn't expect it, and it just worked its way out, and now we are 2 years later and still going.
That's awesome. It's always nice when you find people that you just click with.
Yes, it's true. Doesn't happen so often.
Exactly. So you're very lucky that you have that. And so what was the inspiration behind starting your own company together?
Well, when I met the main founder, Jeremy, he had already started this business with a code lending platform for students. So the point of what he was doing back then was to help students access higher education through code lending. And the platform still exists today. It's called StudyLink, but it's only for French students at this time because regulations are quite complicated regarding monies and money transfer across countries and stuff like that. So at this time, only works for French students, but we hope that someday we will be able to expand this business.
Awesome. That's really cool. So, and then branching off of that, you kind of dove into Airtable. Did you discover Airtable because of your job?
Yes. Actually, I met another non-profit organization, people from there, and they told me about Airtable, and they showed me what they were doing with it. And I was like, yeah, it's nice. It feels like better than Excel or Google Sheet, like more fancy UI, easier to understand, like just better overall. And the relationship stuff is really, really strong, a strong capabilities feature. So I liked it. And we didn't use it like right away, but a few months later, I dug in into it, and I really liked it because it's easy. It's like you want to put an image here, you copy paste the image. It's simple. They've made a outstanding job on the UI and the UX, and that is one of the main reasons it's so widely used. I believe.
I couldn't agree more. It puts it in a beautiful way that you can understand. It's very intuitive.
Yeah, it's really easy to get started with. It's like, it's brainless, let's say. It's like, okay, let's do stuff. It can get complicated when you have to deal with a lot of relationships, but there are a lot of resources online to find inspiration and to start from a template or stuff like that. So we use it regularly, and we use it today for several internal projects like risk assessment management internal of our company, but also time tracking or other stuff like stuff for customers. What I really like the most about Airtable is like it's really perfect fit for proof of concept. Like you want to start a new project, whatever it is, and you need some kind of database and the ability to change it easily and the ability to provide a customer with a link or someone with an edit link or view link or form. Or it grants a lot of different capabilities, and it's really easy to just get started with.
It's so cool how it's super easy to get started, and then it also gives you that launching pad to get more complicated as you learn more.
Yeah.
It's easy and powerful at the same time. Yeah, absolutely. So you started using it, and then what was the inspiration for building this platform that you just released for backups? Did you realize that, oh wow, we don't actually have any of this data stored anywhere else?
Well, as I said, we use Airtable for some of our clients, and the data that are stored in Airtable are only stored in Airtable. And that is quite critical because if something bad happens, whatever it is, our fault, Airtable's fault, whatever, then we lose all the data because we don't have any external backups. And that can be a life or death thing for a company, for any organization. And it is too critical not to find a solution that would allow us to restore, even if it is only partial backups, but the ability to restore the data.
Right.
So the point of the tool we released is to make such external backups, meaning it's not owned by Airtable. It's owned by yourself, and you have complete control over how many backups you want to make, on which table, which bases, at which time, which frequency, how long you're going to store them. There is automated lifecycle, so you can decide to automatically delete some that are like 6 months old or 2 years old. And it is still at this point limited, and it's unfortunately limited because of Airtable's own limitations.
Right.
They have a very strong limitation on their API. The capabilities they provide are not powerful enough for anything that needs to scale, basically, in my opinion. Security also could be better, especially regarding some, like the API tokens. They don't follow the best rules. And for instance, if you leak the API credential that allow access and update to one of your bases,
right,
all of your bases are impacted.
Yes.
And it means that making one mistake can grant access to someone to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that is really not what I would like to have.
Yes.
So there are some limitations. And for instance, when Airtable has its own backup feature, like
right.
you click on a base and then you make a backup of it. A snapshot, they call them snapshots.
Yeah.
It's nice. It is more powerful than what we have built, but it is internal.
Right.
Meaning that if you delete the base itself, you don't have access to the snapshot anymore. So you lose the whole thing. So in such case, the only way to restore the data is to ask Airtable to restore the whole base. That's the only way I know of. I've never used it. I never had the unfortunate chance to have to do so. I hope it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But snapshots are still, in my opinion, better than what we did, because they can restore the whole thing, relationships, images, the whole thing.
Right.
While How-To is limited. But How-To is external, meaning that if Airtable loses the capability to restore its own snapshot, like if they make a mistake, if they lose a snapshot, if they have an intrusion in the system, security issue, or just a bug, well, you may be fucked. And we don't want that to happen for us.
Exactly.
So it's like a last resort thing. We rely on the snapshot quite regularly, but again, you cannot automate those. You have to click manually on each base to make a snapshot. It's not optimal. It's not scalable.
Yeah.
Our solution is, so it's the last resort, in my opinion.
Well, still, I mean, it's interesting because it's something that needs to be there, because you're completely right. If somebody were to delete the base, you wouldn't have access to the snapshots anymore.
Yes.
And so your solution kind of steps in as a way to say, hey, you can still save it here. You'd still have to import it all into a new base, but you still have the data.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
We don't have a restore capability yet. We worked on it, and it's quite hard to make it right because of what Airtable API allows.
Right.
And we are working on it, but I'm not sure. I won't give any ETA for this because it's like it may be months away. So
right,
it's complicated, really.
I can imagine, and I can't even think about how you might go about creating a new column with a formula that was there before or something like that. I don't think they allow you to do that. So, I mean...
Well, basically, if we go a bit more into the technical, I will show you later on in the demo how does a backup look like.
Right.
But basically, it provides the data,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't provide the structure of the data.
Right.
So it doesn't tell you there is a relationship between this field and this field.
Exactly.
It doesn't tell you there is a formula here. It doesn't tell you there is like a styling rule on this field. So
Right.
even if you restore the raw data, you lose all the things that make the real value of it.
Right. Exactly.
Even with all backups. But this kind of stuff is properly restored with the snapshots. That's why they are more powerful.
Right.
But limited as well. So
exactly.
No perfect solution out there.
Right.
It's been it's a topic that's been discussed for years now. Many people have asked for such a ability to make external backups that are actually restorable,
Mm-hmm.
and so far nothing has happened. So we have to make a first step.
Exactly. Well, the community sure appreciates you stepping in and providing that service, I'm sure. And I know that I do. I'm excited to hear like a little bit more about like some use cases that you might have for your product.
If we focus on what Airtable doesn't allow for, like the life cycle, you can configure automated backups that you just configure them and then you just forget about them. It just works behind the scene in the background, just does the stuff, and that's it. And if you don't want to store too many of them, you have lifecycle abilities through Amazon AWS S3 configuration of the bucket that stores the data, because it uses AWS S3 for storing the backups themselves. It's one of the most, like, the cheapest thing out there. So you can store a lot of backups and still pay nothing, like literally nothing for it. You can, well, if in my use case, if stuff goes wild, let's say, and I have to restore stuff manually, with my backup, I can do it myself, and I can restore them either in an Airtable or in another system. I just have to write a script that takes the data and make some calculation and then inject them somewhere else. So
perfect.
That's something that may be covered by Airtable if you can export the data, but I'm not quite sure about that.
No, I mean, and you can export it, but you can't automate any exporting of it.
Yeah.
So what yours? Yeah. So that's where you step in, which is awesome. Yeah, that's
but
great.
Still, there are too many limitations at this time for me to consider this like stable and usable for. It's usable in production system, but it may not save the day if something goes really bad, because it's too limited at this time. And let's say because Airtable doesn't allow you to know which tables are within a base.
Right.
You don't know which table are there. You don't have a list of the table. You have to know every table in advance. So let's say you create a new table.
Yeah.
Well, the backup is not going to cover it automatically, because it doesn't know about it and it cannot know about it automatically. That is one of Airtable's API limitation, for instance. It's a big one, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to update the backup tool to add the new table's name so that new backups will include it. And it's a manual step that we couldn't automate it easily.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's understandable for sure. I mean, that is already a limitation with most apps that are connected to Airtable. Like for Zapier, for example, if you change the name of a table or change the name of a field, you still have to go and manually update that as well. So yeah, definitely a limitation of Airtable's API. But still, I mean, like you said, it's the first step. So I'm excited to hear more. Absolutely. And I applaud you for taking that first step.
Well, thank you. If people want to step in and help the product grow larger, there are ways to automate such things. They are complicated, but there are ways.
Yes.
So, but it will rely mostly on open source contributions, because we will not invest much more time into it, because what we have built right now is enough for our primary need. So if the community wants to contribute, I will be happy to help so, but we will not do the stuff ourselves
Right.
at this point.
Understood. Absolutely. So you have a background in technology, I'm assuming.
Yes, I have quite a lot.
Great. That's awesome. So what did you like, what's been your focus primarily?
The web technologies, mainly. I had my well, I have always been in love with computers since I was very very young, like 8 years old, playing Age of Empire on the family computers, kind of stuff. Then I had my own around 13, and I started coding and developing HTML, CSS, basic stuff really at around 17. It got used to around 20 when I joined a school when I learned programming all day long for 5 years. And then I worked 2 years in Paris as a software engineer. And then I quit and I founded Unly.
Awesome.
And here I am 2 years later.
That's great. Well, it must have been super scary to quit and go and do something new, but I mean, it seems like it worked out for you pretty well. So that's awesome.
It did, definitely.
Great. Well, good for you. That's super cool. I'm excited to see what you've built, if you want to share your screen.
Yes, so I can share something, but it's nothing really fancy because, as I said, everything works in the background.
Right.
So I'm going to share a few things.
Yes, please.
Based on the demo of the open source software. Like we are going to see the Airtable base. That is one of the templates we used and used as a demo for the software.
All right.
Okay. So here you have one of the templates of Airtable, which is called digital video production. So you have a lot of stuff. Really, the content doesn't matter at all. It's just here to make some basic content that we can use to test our backups. So the repository is this one, Airtable backups boilerplate, and this explains in detail how to set up the whole thing. So as I said, it is based on your own AWS account. So you are the owner of the backups, which is pretty important to me because I'm not going to give my backups to some random third party.
Yes.
I want to stay in control, and that's what we are advising. So I won't go into the details of the whole setup thing because it's not interesting in this video. I'm just going to show what happens.
Okay.
So here we are on AWS S3. I'm using a sandbox account. And we have this bucket, Airtable backups demo staging for test stuff. So we have a few backups. And here we have automated backups that have been configured to run every 3 minutes. So it's currently running. There are 15 of them. So this one is our latest. Well, I haven't changed the data, so it doesn't really matter. What matters is that they are running every 3 minutes. So here is a little bit of the source code, and that's how I say it every 3 minutes. There is a lot of other way to configure it, but basically here I took one backup, which is using this base ID. It's going to back up all those tables. It's going to store all the backups in Airtable backups boilerplate folder, which is this one, Airtable backups boilerplate, the folder. And storage class is which type of storage you're going to use. There are several values, and those the cost of storing and retrieving the data, the backups, depends on the storage. So we use standard AI because it's most right. So it's the best in the average case to use. Maybe you want to use something else like Glacier, Deep Archive, but those are the most cheapest. But you cannot retrieve the backup immediately, so it may not be the wisest choice.
Right.
And you can just go on and go on and go on and add more backups here. Another table, duplicate this, and add another table, new bases, new directory, new storage class, and you can add as many as you want.
Okay. So you could add multiple bases in this code here.
Yes, in this code here, yeah. Basically duplication this and change stuff here.
Awesome.
And if I want, for instance, to have one backup every 3 minutes and another backup every day, I could make 2 backups of the same base and have different life cycle strategies.
Awesome.
So.
And would it save it all in one file, or would it save it for a different file for the?
No, those will be different files because they are not the same bases.
Awesome.
And it will be in different folders. You see here, it's because I only have one base, but if I want to name it like digital video production, that's what I will do, digital video production, and then I will have another base and use a S3 directory with a base's name. That's what I do in my production systems because it just makes more sense and it's easier to find.
Right.
All right. So I'm not going to change this and all deploy stuff here because it takes a few minutes and it's not interesting. We can test it.
Yeah.
This way, for instance, just to see if the backups work. This is going to make a test. So it's run locally on my computer, but it will perform an actual backup of the base, and it's faster than deploying the whole thing. Okay. So here it is. It's been deployed, so you can see that we have a new backup here, and I will find it here. Yeah, it appeared somewhere.
Yeah, I saw it.
And that's just to test the system locally to make sure it works fine and your Airtable is properly configured and such. Well, one of the most difficult things with this system is that because everything happens in the background, you don't really see what happens yourself. So it's difficult to monitor or to be aware of what works and what doesn't. To answer this need, what we have done is to plug it with Hexagon. And Hexagon is linked to AWS Lambda, which is what performs the backups. It's basically the server that does the backup thing.
Okay.
And here you have statistics about what happens. So you can see that I just made a backup a minute ago here, and I have some CloudWatch logs about what happened, and I can see that I have my logs here, and everything is much easier. Okay, I didn't instrument this, but I'm going to show you with my production system.
Yeah.
And when you instrument stuff, you can add an architecture view, which tells you what happens between the different components that are running in the background. So the Ambroise S3 and the Lambda and Airtable, and you can see everything that goes there with credentials, errors, stuff like that. So it's much easier to monitor and understand what goes wrong when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Hexagon is free until 1 million events a month, so it's a lot. Let's say for backups thing. If you pay from 1 million backups a month, then I believe you can pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
And the last thing I'm going to talk about is data structure itself. So here is the content of a backup.
Okay.
Through our tool. It's basically it. So we have the video tracker here, and this is basically one table, and this is another table and another table. And when you go into it, you have the base ID and all the fields, and when the base was created, and for each field, you have stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff. What you can see is that for images, for instance, it relies on Airtable CDN. So that is a limitation currently of the backup script, in my opinion, because if Airtable removes the asset for whatever reason, then you lose all the assets in your base, even though you perform backup. So that's one limitation. A way to lower this limitation would be to basically fetch all the assets when you're performing the backup, but it could get much heavier to store them.
Right.
And it's a bit more complicated, but that would be a better way to do things, in my opinion. We just haven't done it.
Right.
And what I meant sooner with, for instance, video tracker, when you have relationships like saves or stuff like that, you don't see those in the backups. For instance, you don't know that the project lead is going to be a relationship with the people table. It's not going to appear anywhere. It just doesn't. So you have to.
Right.
For instance, this wasn't a relationship, but this is everything that starts with rec, which means record, I believe.
Yes.
Is relationship record.
Right.
But you don't know from which table.
Yeah, exactly.
So any restore tool will need to resolve which table this belongs to and make it understandable that it is from this table and restore the stuff. Those are what I mean by Airtable API allows for data backups, but not the structure. And you won't see anything like formulas or blocks or stuff like that. It's all lost in the process.
Yep, absolutely. But I mean, and I'm sure that the same happens with even a lookup field too. It'll return the record ID instead of the value. And I think it's just innately most apps that I've used that hook up into Airtable are like that as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't know. I don't use, I don't connect much things to Airtable actually.
Yeah.
So don't have much experience with it. I just use it as it is and grants my customers access to it. And they can manage their own data, and then we can import those data in another system. Awesome. for building websites or stuff like that.
That's really cool. But I mean, this looks, and it's very clean and easy to read, and I definitely could see the usefulness of this because there's nothing else out there really that allows you to automate.
No, there isn't, not my knowledge at least. There are paid solutions,
Right.
but even those are limited. This one is not a paid solution. You will have to pay for the AWS resources, but we back up like every day several bases, and it costs us like $0. But yeah,
goodness.
because it's the storage is really cheap. It gets clean after a few months because we don't need the backup anymore.
Right.
And AWS Lambda and AWS S3 are the two most cheapest AWS tools out there. So it's really, really cheap overall.
Awesome. Yeah.
I think I've done I lost my word. An overview. I think I've done I've given a good overview of the whole thing and capabilities and limitation of what we built. Would you use it?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else out there right now, really, that gives you that flexibility for, as you say, for little to no price. So that is excellent. Definitely. I mean, I could see a lot of need for it, or I mean, I already have seen a lot of need for it. So yes, definitely. I mean, the one limitation I think is for someone who doesn't understand coding that well. But if you do, then this is perfect.
Yes, exactly. That's one of the another limitation we didn't talk about. You still need some knowledge, IT knowledge, because you will need to configure your AWS account, configure access roles and stuff like that. And this can be quite complicated, and because AWS is a huge product, and we chose it because we know how to use it, and we use the serverless framework, which simplifies the whole thing. But still, for a newcomer, it can be difficult to grasp the lots of different things, honestly.
Absolutely. But I mean, your regular IT department could employ this easily, I would say.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they would figure it out. It's not that complicated when you have knowledge of this kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. That was wonderful. And kudos to you. You've definitely built a clean product here. It looks great.
Thank you.
Of course.
Well, we hope the community will step in and help improve. There are several things to be done. For instance, I've read about a solution, a very smart one, regarding how to detect which tables are used by base automatically. And the solution consists to connect with a browser to Airtable and select the base and display the page, and then fetch from the web page, get all the tables name, and use them in the backup thing to back up all the tables one by one using the API. That is possible, even though it is really complicated, in my opinion, for doing something that should be much, much simpler.
Right.
But it is possible. It's possible to improve the script, to automatically link the relationship by resolving them when building the backup. It's also possible to make an asset folder and download all the assets so that the backup can be restored in full. But yes, still limitation with formulas, blocks, styling, this kind of stuff. I don't see how it could be saved. Maybe with the same solution of connecting to the web page and extracting those kind of stuff. But it's quite complicated.
Right. It's at what point do you draw the line of, do I spend my time working on that, or just hope that Airtable will come out with a solution, hopefully?
Well, that is why open source exists in the first place, actually, for the kind of stuff that doesn't grant you any serious advantage over other people or other organization, but by sharing this knowledge together and improving it together, then we improve the overall capabilities of everyone. And that is one of the best aspects of open source. Since this is released under MIT, a license, anybody can use it, will change it, use it, sell it if they want, and stuff like that. So it's fully open source.
Great. And where can our listeners go to learn more about you and Unly and your product?
Well, we have a website at unly.org.
Okay.
And we are on social networks like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn with Unly or Unly Ed for education. Depends.
Awesome. And we'll put those links in the show notes for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Pleasure share. I liked it.
Me too. Excellent. And have a great rest of your day.